morning. It's Mr. C with your level 6 math today. Today we're going to do our Saxon math lesson number 7. This has to do with lines, segments, and rays. Alright, so we're just doing measurements. This is a bit of a review for most of you. Now a line in the normal world is just something that's straight that goes a long distance. But in the mathematical world, we have to be a little more specific with how we talk about lines. So a ray is a line that starts with an endpoint and then it goes on for forever. So you think about a flashlight when you think about a ray. Also, a flashlight shoots like a ray of light, so that's an easy way to remember that. A line segment has two endpoints to it. So a ray goes on forever in one direction. A normal line would go on forever in both directions. But a line segment has two definite endpoints, okay? Now, we're going to talk about the metric system versus the US customary system today. In the metric system, that's where we're looking at a meter for length, a kilogram for mass, and a second for time. So examples of that is a kilometer is 1,000 meters, a centimeter is 100th of a meter, etc. So we'll go through different examples. This is something, if you're using the Power Up books, you're going to be practicing this with your math facts and just the things that you memorize to have top of mind. And so some of the different measurements and going from the metric system to the US customary system, we're going to practice those because there are some that are just really good to know. Now this is just a review of what we just covered. So this would be a line. It doesn't show like dots for endpoints, and so that's where we have to be really careful. We want to make it obvious what we're talking about when we're doing this in math class. So if we put two arrows on the end, we know that's a line that goes on forever. If there's just one arrow, then we know it's a ray. So even though there's not like a dot written here, we can assume that if there's an arrow on one side, that it goes on forever, and the other side has an ending point. Okay, and then so this would be a line segment because it doesn't show arrows in any direction. So if you just do it without like putting a little dot, we're going to assume that that is a line segment. Line segments have length. In the US, we use two systems of measurement. One is the US customary system, which unfortunately is probably inferior to the metric system, which the rest of the world uses for a reason. It makes more sense. So we're familiar with the metric system as well. That's centimeters, meters, and kilometers. In the US metric system, we're looking at inches, feet, yards, and miles. So we have a chart here that will be familiar to you. It's in the book if you're using Saxon math, and it's in the Power Up books if you're using those. And so this is just something that we look at to compare. So for example, an inch is about the width of your thumb, whereas a centimeter is about the thickness of your little finger. So your thumb's bigger, so if you think inch is just a little bit bigger than a centimeter. Millimeter is really thin, it's like the size of a dime. And in the US customary system, we don't have anything smaller than an inch. So the metric system is definitely more precise, and 10 millimeters goes into a centimeter. 100 centimeters goes into a meter. It just makes sense. All right. A yard and a meter is about the same length. A yard is 36 inches, and a meter is just a little bit more than that. It's like 39 inches. So that, in fact, I have a yardstick here. You'll see this is 36 inches goes to here, but this is a full meter stick, and so we've got this little. This is how much longer a meter is than a yard. All right, and then miles, 0.62 miles is a kilometer, and so that's why in like road races, like 3.1 miles is 5K, 6.2 miles is a 10K, so you can use that to kind of remember the differences. In this activity or in this lesson, you're going to use a ruler. You might use a tag paper or just a blank piece of paper to make some measurements, so they won't be exactly at scale. On the board today, we're just going to use the ones that they project up. Okay? So here we're looking at different measurements. Now you'll notice a couple things about this when you use your ruler. First, whether it's inches or centimeters, the main measurement, so the 1 here would be, let's say this is inches, it's going to be, the line on the ruler is going to be a little bit longer than the half marks. And they do that just to make it easier to measure, and then if there's quarter marks, they're even shorter, and then if there's 8 marks, they're even shorter. With centimeters and millimeters, it's just centimeters, and then all the millimeters are the same length, so it makes it a little easier to count there. All right, so if we're going to show every quarter inch, you're going to make the half inches a little shorter than the full inches, and the quarter inches a little shorter than that. So if you're making a tag board, you can do that. If you wanted to just do it on a blank piece of paper, you can easily let's just do 1 and 2. So we'll just say that's 1, and then we make the halves a little shorter. So I'll make that a 2, so that's longer. And then we can make the quarters shorter than that. Oh, that's a little too long. And then we can make the 8ths even shorter than that. And so you can make it, and now that looks kind of like a ruler, right? And so you can make one on your board just for this activity. Here we're going to see the comparison between inches and centimeters. Something that's 3 inches long is going to be about 7.5 centimeters, not exactly. And that's why sometimes you need to compare. So you might measure with your inch on one side, turn it over, and measure with centimeters on the other side. How long is this line segment? We see that it's in inches. The beginning of the segment starts at 0. So if we just go up to 1, we have to see how many markers are in the measurement. So we're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. So if we go to 1, that's 1 out of the 4 equal parts, so that would be 1 1/4 inches. How long is this segment? In centimeters, we see, oh, so it's not 10 equal, there's a halfway mark, which would be 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's going to be 10 marks between the centimeters, and so we can just count, but it looks like it's exactly on the 2 here, so that would just be 2 centimeters or 20 millimeters, and you can count 20 millimeters up, but you know that each one is 10, and then it even shows every 5, okay? So 20 millimeters long. What's the appropriate unit of measuring the length of a soccer field? So this is one where you just have to use your brain. You have to think, how big is a soccer field? Ooh, it's, and can I measure that in centimeters? Well, centimeters are like that small. So if you measured it in centimeters, it'd be thousands or hundreds of thousands of centimeters. That'd be hard to keep track of. Meters, this is a meter right here. So if we thought of these, it'd be a lot of meters. You probably know that most fields, sports fields, are about 100 meters. And so, you can measure 100, that's reasonable. Kilometers, that's like over half a mile, and so it'd be hard to be precise on that as well. So if you want to be precise, I think meters is your best bet. Could you do it with kilometers? Sure, you could say it's maybe 1/4 a kilometer or something, but that's not going to be as precise as saying 100 meters. Okay? So our answer here is going to be B for measuring the length of a soccer field. And that's it for today. So you're going to have your rulers out today. You're going to be measuring things. Your teacher might have you make a tag board to practice making the marks, and you're going to be comparing inches to centimeters. Good luck.